The idea that you're created by God and that you have value, that you're not just a speck of dust in the backdrop of the universe, it was so overwhelming to me that it was almost like, yes, in some ways, even if it wasn't true, I was going to believe it. Because it meant that I was here with some meaning and intention and that I had value, and it changed my life.
Welcome back to Inspire Change with Jordan Mulligan. Today I am joined with an absolutely amazing human being. He has authored many books and sold millions of copies worldwide. Erwin McManus and his son, Aaron McManus. Today's video was sponsored by Huel, a quick, affordable, and nutritionally complete source of food that I absolutely love. If you want to find out more, head to the link in the description and we'll talk about this more later. But before that, let's dive into it.
The first thing I'd like to start with is interesting growing up, like the stories I'm hearing from Kim, your background. I'd love to hear that just to start off with, like just some background.
Well, I'm from a small country in Central America, south of Mexico, north of Colombia, called El Salvador, that is infamous because for the past several decades, it has been the most violent country in the world, the highest murder rate of any country in the world. Ravaged by war for a great deal of time. And so I'm from the capital, San Salvador. And Aaron, when he was maybe 10 years old, actually went to the house I grew up in. So it's crazy that my grandparents raised me for the first few years of my life. And so Spanish was my first language. My mom had to leave me with our grandparents, me and my brother, because she went to work for Pan Am as a stewardess. I never knew my real father. He was a linguist. He spoke at least 6 to 12 languages. And they were married for a brief season of time when my mom was 16 to 19. She got pregnant, had my brother, then she got pregnant. And while she was pregnant with me, something violent happened and the marriage ended. And so I didn't know my mom or dad as a small child. My grandparents raised me at first. They were my mom and dad. And then one day, my mom took us to the United States, to I think New York, and then Miami. And then she married someone who was involved in what we called creative underground economies. And it'll take you a few minutes to figure that out. And was deeply connected to an Italian family in Chicago. And he did something that they did not like. He disappeared. He needed an alias. Runs to Miami, meets my mom. They get married within a few weeks. And then we come to the States. He takes us to a police station, convinces the police that we've been robbed. And I walk out with an alias, McManus. So I grew up my entire life with a false identity. I walk in Spanish, I walk out Irish. And then all of a sudden, I'm basically Erwin McManus. And so I've always had identity crisis, who am I? What's my story? Where do I come from? And because they didn't want me to have the trauma of all that story, they rewrote the story and told me my stepdad was my real dad and that my past memories were not real. So I had all these memories of a life before Bill McManus, but I was told that those memories were not valid. So by the time I was 10 years old, I was a psychotic mess, and I was in a psychiatric chair in and out of a hospital for psychosomatic illnesses. And I was a mess. I began having traumatic nightmares. I would wake up in the middle of the night, and while I was awake, the nightmares would still be vivid and real. I was a straight D student. I would disappear into an imaginary world. The class would be gone, and I would wake up, and the teacher in the class would be gone, but they couldn't pull me back. So I was a pretty broken human being. So that was like my early stages of my journey. And, I joke about it, but it wasn't funny at the time. But probably when I was in 6th grade, I read a lot of Robert Heinlein, Isaac Asimov, Ray Bradbury, Andre Norton, all these physicists who wrote science fiction. And I think it allowed me to have a really vivid imagination, but I began living in this inside world, convinced myself that I was from another planet, that I was an experiment, that they dropped me here to see if we could merge with humans. And I remember I would sleepwalk and be gone in the neighborhoods in El Salvador, and I would run away from home. And I would run the fields, and I would, in the middle of the night, just like beg for somebody to come get me.
I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Today's video was sponsored by the amazing Huel, a quick, affordable, and nutritionally complete source of food that I have used for the last 2 years. And the reason for that is because when we are running around, filming these documentaries, flying around the world, making these projects and interviewing people, the last thing I can do is prepare a meal that's nutritionally complete, has a great source of protein, is powered by plants. It's impossible. So to know I can reach in my film bag, pull out one of these, glug this on set, and stay fueled and satiated throughout the day, knowing I've had a healthy meal, is unbelievable. It's an absolute life hack and game changer for me on set, and I recommend them 100% to everybody that I speak to. So if you want to find out more, head to the link in the description. My favorite product is Huel Black Edition. It's a great protein source, and I use it for after all my workouts to build muscle and to build strength. So if you want to find out more, head to the link in the description. Before that, let's dive into the video.
So I felt this deep sense of disconnection and aloneness in the world, which I think actually created in me a really heightened sense of empathy for other people in their pain and brokenness. And even when I was a kid, I would say I could see emotions the way people see furniture. And I was irreligious, so I didn't have any kind of faith construct to absorb some of the pain and understanding, the sense of insignificance and disconnection that I had. So I read every mythology book in the library by the time I was in 6th grade. I thought maybe in mythology I could find the story that would help me make sense of life. And I realize now, I was also a graphic novel collector, and I realize now that graphic novels are just modern mythologies, except for Thor. He's both ancient and modern. But Daredevil and Batman and X-Men are just the Greek pantheon and the Roman gods and Norse gods. And for some reason, I fell in love with mythologies because they gave me a place to escape, and it helped me imagine that maybe one day I could be heroic, that maybe someday I would wake up and I had superpowers. And so I always had this hope that one day I could wake up and not be me, that I could be a me that I could value and feel significant and love. And that kind of led me through a journey. Graduated from high school, barely graduated, didn't go to college. I worked as a carpenter, lumberjack. I worked construction. I flipped burgers, flipped pizzas. I did everything that required no skill and no education, and just started wondering, is this all there is to life? And I was desperate. And then I was running across a highway at 19 years old. I graduated from high school at 17, so I finished early. And then when I was 19, I was running across a highway, got hit head on by a car, became paralyzed briefly from the waist down. And it was just one of those moments in my life where I'm feeling like my life is ending fast. And I didn't have even a perception of a future, which I think is the most dangerous place to be when you can't imagine a better you or a better life or a better world. And I begged my way into a school to go to college. It was a school called Elon University. And I literally drove to the university, walked into the administration office, asked to meet with someone in charge, forced my way into someone's office as an insane, desperate kid. And I looked at the guy and I said, I need you to let me into your school. And he said, you need to apply, there's a process. And I said, I can't pass your process. If you look at my grades, if you look at my transcripts, you'll reject me. I just need you to look at a human being eye to eye and give him a chance. I think it's the first time in my life I fought for myself. I don't know why, but the guy decided to let me in. And I end up in this university and I find Socrates in a philosophy class. And my life changes in a very significant way. I start reading Plato and Socrates and Aristotle, and I find the Stoics, and I think to myself, there are people who are searching for the meaning of life, just like me. And I start voraciously reading through every philosopher that has lived from ancient to modern times, not as an academic and not because of any intellectual pursuit. I was hoping someone could help me see that my life mattered. And when I found myself in the midst of that, I had in my mind two options: that maybe there is meaning to life and I could find it, or maybe there's not any meaning and I could accept it. And in the midst of all that, I ended up having a surprising conversation with people who believed in Jesus. And I laughed it off and discounted it. And for me, it was the singular last option possible on this earth. And which is sort of the irony of life, is that the thing that you run from fastest and first may be the very thing that you actually need to run to fastest and toward. And I just came to a place when I was 20 years old. I basically didn't know, but I just kind of prayed and said, God, if you're out there, I'm in. If my life matters, could you show me? And then I made it real specific. I said, Jesus, if you're real, I'm leaving it to you to make that known to me. Because I didn't know how in the world could you prove God or find God. It would almost have to be like God would have to decide also to be found. And so I pivoted my life. The idea that you're created by God and that you have value, that you're not just a speck of dust in the backdrop of the universe, it was so overwhelming to me that it was almost, I guess, in some ways, even if it wasn't true, I was going to believe it. Because it meant that I was here with some meaning and intention and that I had value, and it changed my life. So that's my brief backdrop.
I hope you enjoyed this episode with Erwin McManus. I fully recommend Erwin's book, The Mind Shift. It's going to be linked down below. You can have that same unblocking of certain things with his teachings. He talks about all different things, relationships, finances, jealousy, love, hate. It's all down below. So please go check it out. And I also want to mention Huel, our sponsor today, made this possible. Find out more with the link in the description. I fully stand by Huel. They're a fantastic company. And I want to say a massive thank you to everybody who supported us at mulliganbrothers.com. The posters and the journals are almost sold out. Code 2024 is still active on the website for buy one, get one free. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.